We are here to bring you everything and anything surrounding Porsche. I'm Mike.
I'm Aaron.
And this is P-Car Talk.
All right, welcome to another episode of P-Car Talk. We're in sunny Tampa, Florida.
Sunny and
That's
hot.
right, sunny and hot, man. We don't have winter here. I guess it was,
No.
what would you call that, spring and summer?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it was chill for a good day. I was like, oh, that's nice. And then
Yeah,
back to 90s.
sweltering. So yeah, it's really hot here. I know some people are still freezing in other areas. I'm sorry for you, but you know, it's warm and it's always warm here, but we'll get over that. But welcome to another episode of P-Car Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm Aaron.
And we got a unique episode we're going to do today. This is going to be an all listeners question episode. We do have quite a few. We love our listener engagement.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for your questions. And we want to try to do these, every once in a while. I can't give a time frame on it, but, we haven't done one of these in a while where we answered questions. And like, again, everybody who's listening, if you do have a question moving on in the future when we ask, the best way to get to those questions is going to be Instagram. So follow us on Instagram at PCarTalk. Aaron's going to post something here occasionally. Just keep paying attention to that page. Follow us if you're not following us so you can see it when he posts it, and then go ahead and ask your question. And like, again, we're going to try to answer as many as we can. And, let's go ahead and get rolling.
Let's do it.
So DFW.dad asks, for someone who is a general Porsche fan, no preference between air-cooled or water-cooled, what would you recommend as a first sub-$100,000 Porsche, quotations, weekend car, 964, 997, GT3, 996, twin turbo? Which one and why? So I'm guessing he wants us to pick between those.
Cross-shopping a lot of different things. A lot of different experiences there.
Yeah. So you go first, Aaron. You tell me what you think.
Out of those, I mean, immediately what came to mind, I don't know how much weekend car, but probably I wouldn't even be one of those. I think I'd probably do like a 997 GTS.
And why?
Well, because it's not quite GT car, so it's not crazily hard on you. You still get some aspects of the center locking wheels and hardback seats, paint to match. You can get some of the cool things that have to go with all the little Porsche things you can do for the water cooled 964. That's good. I love the way it looks. It's still air cooled, so it's gonna lessen that expense of maintenance.
Yeah,
sounds like it's dad, so I'm thinking about that. And then price wise, it definitely comes in there at price. What else would I think about?
Now, as far as let's rewind before we get too far away from it. The GTS, would you get a manual one or would you get the a PDK one?
PDK is pretty good. But if it's
but
not,
we're talking
it doesn't,
weekend.
it
We're talking weekend
so
car.
I'm definitely going manual on this one. For sure.
Yeah. I guess it's kind of tough. I'm assuming he wants us to pick from this list, so I'll pick one from this list.
I'll pick another one from that list.
And it's kind of tough, so I'm going to give you reasons why I would pick each one of these. Let's do that.
Good. Okay.
So 964, I clearly have one, right? So
yep. Love there.
That's I won't get too far in the weeds why I have that car, but I think I've spoken a lot about it in prior episodes. But the sound, the feel, the old and the new blend.
Looking for another one, would you have got anything different?
If I didn't have one Porsche right now.
Yep. If you're this guy and you're cross shopping, you're looking at 964.
I think it's tough because we're so far in the weeds with it, and I'm still, believe it or not, like I'm a value for dollar kind of guy, and I think where the 964s are right now, they're so expensive. I can't say no, but I would lean away from that car based off of the ones he have here.
Okay.
Now, you were talking 964 maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Absolutely, out of this list, I'd probably buy a 964 in a heartbeat. The reason why I have my 964 is, like I told you before, it's the blend of the old and the new. It's air cooled. I like air cooled cars. I'm not just a air cooled junkie. I do like water cooled stuff too. But if I could only have one, and I would probably, my dream car would probably be like a 964 RS. Like if somebody came to me and like you could only ever own one weekend car. There's maybe you live in a location where you have the funds, but you don't have a space situation. Maybe you live, in Venice Beach and you have a 1-car garage, or you live in a flat somewhere in London and you only get one little space in 964 RS. So that says a lot about what I would end up picking. But 997 GT3, I think right now, we've kind of talked about it. They're kind of cooling off a little bit
right now.
I think that is a ton of bang for your buck. I think that's a very special car. It's a Metzger engine car. We've talked before. I'm a naturally aspirated guy. That car, weekend car, I think that's a great weekend car out of the ones he's picked on here, because that car can do so much, right? Like if you want to play at the track every once in a great while,
it'll definitely handle it.
It sings in an amazing song. It looks great. It's still small enough where it's still kind of old school Porsche. I think it ticks all the right boxes. Now, being a dad, no back seat, I don't know if that's an issue. I don't know where you live. So
I think Dallas Fort Worth.
Okay. Oh, that would make sense then. 996 Turbo. Again, another car, ton of bang for the buck.
Right now, yeah. Eventually, they'll have to go up.
Yeah.
I mean,
they are. They're already starting to. I mean, there's guys out there who have hidden them in garages. I've seen them already, like posted 2,000-3,000 miles, $100,000 for the car. It's
I haven't seen that
and
yet.
like speed yellow. Yeah, I've already seen it, and it's like, come on, man, like
well,
everybody's kind of get on the bandwagon, and it's
it's the turbo power that's reliable.
Yeah, and again, Metzger engine.
Yeah.
So
double Metzgers.
So it depends on what you want to do with the car, I guess. Are you a horsepower craving kind of guy?
Yep.
If you are, I would lean towards a turbo. If that's not important to you and you want linear power, GT3.
Do you really love those headlights or not? That's a choice. I mean, you're saying just because people say that you don't see
you don't drive the headlights, man.
You might not, but I get out and I have to see it in my garage.
Yeah.
So tell me, or I have to walk away from it in a
Okay,
parking
so
lot.
like I'm going to add another element into this, 996 GT3. Would you own one of those?
Now, see, that's even that's more raw experience.
Would you own one of those because of the headlights?
Yeah, I'd still own it.
Oh, okay then.
GT
You gotta get out of the garage and look at the headlights.
GT car, though. I don't know.
Yeah, I get with that moniker. I prefer that car over the turbo, the 996 GT3. If I had to choose between,
and actually, you're still in that range right now where you might. I mean, if you're even looking at a 996, I would look at 996 GT3 as well. If you're gonna and cross shop that with your 997 GT3 just to see.
Yeah, and so I guess Dallas Fort Worth dad. I guess it really just depends on what you're going after, and I guess it depends on what you have already too.
Yeah.
I would encourage you to get something totally opposite of what you already have or have had. If you had a bunch of boosted cars before, don't buy another boosted turbo car, even though that may be comfortable for you. Go get an NA car. If you had a bunch of maybe NA cars and you want a different experience, buy a turbo car. I'm about trying to get different experiences, but also with that being said, I am aging. So go with what you know too. So there's also that school of thought of, oh, I'm comfortable with this. I know how to delineate when the car does boost and I don't freak out. Like you put me in a boosted car, I'm probably going to lose my mind because I'm going to be like, oh my God, I can't handle this, because I'm a naturally aspirated guy. So as far as like when the car boosts up, I probably wouldn't be good behind the wheel of that. We have long straight roads in Florida. I probably could manage it. I mean, I'm not an awful driver or anything. But again, it goes back to preference. So I know we kind of muddied the water for you on that, but
we didn't choose anything yet. Okay, so continue down your list.
So those are his like main three that he was saying, and then we could throw in a caveat of whatever you want. You could throw that in there too. I think on that list for me, honestly, and I know it might shock a lot of people by saying this, even though I have a 964, just because of the price point where 964s are, I would probably go with a GT3, the 997 GT3. If I had to pick from those three, that's the one I would pick.
Color, spec, anything?
That's kind of tough. I mean, they didn't make a bunch of funky colors in those, and the ones they did make in those colors already are pretty coveted already.
Yep, speed yellow is one of those colors.
Yeah. So if you don't have a color preference, I would just go get what you can, man. And for, we're talking price point, anything under 100K, just get part of the club, I guess. But, and again, it goes back to what kind of guy are you? Kind of an old school guy and you don't care about power and you don't care about all those things? Are you going to really use all 415 of those horses at any point? None of us really are, unless you're going to go on track. And I've had this conversation before. Most of us aren't those kind of guys where we do that kind of stuff. We're not living at the track, most of us.
Mm-hmm.
There's some hardcore guys out there that do that stuff. But, what are you going to pick from that list?
Ooh, I'd go, yeah, it does depend on what he's going to be. I'd probably agree with you, the 997 GT3.
Yeah.
Or 996. That's not on the list. GT3.
Yeah,
now that you mentioned it, 'cause
secret
that's
car.
Really got me, yeah.
Yeah, secret choice on that one, 996 GT3. I think there's a lot of car out of that. Yeah, absolutely. Chubzilla was asking the same question, which one of those things? And again, I mean, and if we're just going purely price, probably out of those three, the 996 twin turbo is probably the best bang.
Might be able to get two 996 turbos for the price.
If we're really trying to like maximize the 100K on that and not trying to spend all the 100K out of those three, I mean, as crazy as this sounds, I never thought this day would ever happen. But I mean, you're getting a 996 twin turbo way cheaper than you're getting a 964.
I mean, you can get a 996 twin turbo fully built, like 1,000 horsepower. I've seen them for like 58.
Yeah.
65 maybe. I mean,
and even bone stock one you can pick up in the 40s.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're trying to save some money and because you have a family and maybe you got a bunch of other cars and you just want to be part of the club, I'd say out of the three that you mentioned, that's going to be the cheapest, most horsepower. But again, we've had this conversation on prior episodes. It's not about horsepower.
Nope.
It's about the feels. It's about how the sounds and that turbo is going to muffle a lot of that engine noise. Granted, it's going to make a different noise. It's going to make a whistling noise and all that stuff that goes along with that. So it goes back to preference. What do you like?
You need to find 4 friends that have all 4 of these, and that'll let you drive them a good way.
Aaron, that he brings up a really good point, guys. We've all been in all of these cars, and we're fortunate to have had that opportunity. But if you haven't, you never know. Like, one of these cars may speak to you better than the other one. So I would seek people out, maybe seek Porsche people out in your area. I mean, especially if you're in the Dallas area, become buddies with, Porsche people
out there.
Where you can just be like, hey man, can I just go for a ride in your car just to see what it's like? I'm shopping and I just want to see what it's like. Maybe, obviously they might not let you drive it, but I'm sure I would let people go for a ride in my car.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and anybody close to me, I'm like, go ahead, take the keys, go for it. So moving on, I know it's kind of a convoluted answer, so I guess it really depends. I guess the answer is it depends on what you're trying to do, and what's important to you.
So if you had to choose, you had to make the decision. You're buying the car. Or you go a 997 GT3 and that's it. That's the hard line.
Yeah, I had to think about it for a minute. Yep, that's where I'm at. Out of the 3 that he mentioned, that's where I'm at.
I would be too, just because it's a weekend car.
That's where I'm
living with it, and I get to have that little bit of that race in there. That's good.
Yeah, I like everything that car on that list has to offer as far as Metzger engine and a lot of race car parts that are part of that car. And I'm a motorsports kind of guy, so that's how I would be. But moving on, next question. Highway Star Doritos, interesting name. Should Porsche make that 911 Turismo Coupe, the chopped one that's been photoshopped, that is circling around on the internet? What do you think? I've seen it. If you don't know what he's talking about, essentially he's talking about the shooting brake 911, or whatever you want to call it, the hatchback 911.
It is a shooting brake. That would be proper.
No, I know.
Shooting brake, yeah, but
I'm just trying to.
It could be.
I'm just trying to encompass everybody that maybe
Porsche
doesn't
GTI.
know what I'm talking about when I say shooting brake. But your thoughts on that? Should they make that car?
I don't like it. I just don't like it aesthetically. I mean, maybe it works. Maybe, obviously he likes it. Maybe there's a second. I mean, like anything wagon-esque or hatchback-ish, there's a small market normally.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. I know it's not the same kind of car, but Do you like the BMW clown shoe?
Oh yeah, I can see where they're going. Yeah, I do like that car.
Okay.
Okay, I can see where you're going with that.
So the reason why I ask you that is because it shares a lot of similar lines. A lot of hatchbacks share that.
Yep.
I mean, it's not unique to those cars. The only reason why I brought that up is because of that. That's just to see what your thoughts were on that. So why do you like that car and not the Porsche?
Because the BMW has the engine in the front, and I don't know how you.
So
would
it's
really,
more coupe-esque.
Yeah, it'd be more mid-engine. It would almost be Cayman-like at some point.
I like your answer.
Because you would have to have the trunk space.
Yeah, I like your answer actually because,
Weight dynamics wouldn't work.
it would be a little funky, right? Because if you think about the way a 911 is designed, even the newer ones, when you pop the back deck lid now with the newer ones, you see the plastic fans. How would that work with the bubble? How would it get its air?
Yeah, how would it get its air? Where are the intakes at?
So maybe you get your answer right there. Maybe in the front. I mean, technology nowadays, they can find a way to channel it. I don't
20
know.
radiators later, yeah, sure.
Picking it up from underneath. Hey, maybe we'll just get air cooled again, right? No.
Maybe that's how it works. But yeah.
Yeah. So from a engineering dynamic, I think we just
I think we
brought up a challenge of why that car is probably not being made.
I think we broke it.
So, for me to answer that question, I mean, Photoshop, a lot of cartoony type stuff. That stuff always looks sexy. Prototype cars, they always look sexy. You see these cars at like auto salons and auto shows where they're like, oh, this is the rendering of the concept, what it would look like. And we know a lot of times that it wouldn't look that way. And if it looked like maybe the photos, I'd say maybe. But you and I know damn well that probably is not how the car is going to look.
Hey, no, not with all the laws. And
so
no.
The one they would have to end up making would probably look like hell.
Probably. Until it starts getting on Le Mans, winning some races.
And circling back to how it's going to get its air, I mean, it would probably just have to do it the way the Porsche turbo's getting it, right? On the side.
Yep.
Like
it'd be like a Turbo 5, like one of those Renaults. Yeah.
So look, these huge gaping things.
That would probably look even cooler.
It'd probably look pretty tough.
Yeah. It'd be so wide.
But again, I think it goes back to what Aaron was saying as far as, I mean, that would be such a low number car. Maybe they could make that part of their one of their GT lines of cars they're making, since they don't make a lot of them. Maybe they could do that. I don't know.
That'd be crazy
if the people really wanted it. Maybe it wouldn't be an option in the mass production, so they wouldn't lose a ton of money trying to make that on the line. As far as like they make the standard 911, the 4S and the 2S and all that stuff, it could be one of those specialty cars where they're like, we're only going to make 2,000 of these.
I mean, being a Porsche owner, when's the last time you're like, you know what, I could really use a hatchback right now?
Well, the funny thing you say that is like the car has gotten bigger, so there's more room now. But maybe from a perspective of daily use, right? Like now you actually maybe have a little bit more trunk space.
Now with the 997 Targas, they had it. That whole glass rear is hatched.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they could have just started doing that on every car. That does make that rear access a little easier, but
again, that's still not really a storage area.
No, not really. Not the same as it would be.
So if you made like a hatch, maybe, and I know I'm just gonna go with like maybe you could put a little bit more luggage in there if you want to do, and you're one of these guys that drives around. I don't know. The possibilities are there. Porsche makes so many lines of stuff like that and different model designations. Like,
would you lose your back seats?
That's a great question. I don't know. Maybe you could make an option to not have them.
Maybe
you could just do like a parcel shelf type of deal where it's
almost
all storage.
It's almost 911 meets 914, like that style line.
Mm-hmm.
Just raise that.
It'd be an interesting exercise. Again, if they ever did make this car, it would probably be in limited quantities, just because obviously, as we know, if you're a car guy in just general and just not so Porsche specific, they had a hell of a time trying to sell those clown shoes. They sat on dealership floors. Like, people didn't want them. Only like super enthusiasts really wanted that car.
Still the same.
Yeah. So I think this would be the success rate on this car. People say, these things that we want to buy these cars, but like a lot, let's be honest, like no one's going to this car would probably, the way they would have to design it and the way it would have to get its air and it being limited quantities, probably, we're probably about a $200,000 hatchback at this point. I mean, there's not going to be a lot of buyers at that level. And
I don't think anybody.
we're all saying, and even this gentleman, oh, they should make it, okay, if they made it, are you going to be one of the buyers that shows up, or are you trying to buy this thing fifth, sixth hand and waiting a decade to go get one? Let's be honest. A lot of us are those kind of buyers. We're not even buying it secondhand or even third hand. We're waiting till the car's been around 7-8 years so we can go get one. So we want the manufacturer to make a car that we can let sit around for 8 years. Yeah, someone else takes the hit and we can go buy the car later. So, from a business perspective, that's not good.
Not good business.
So should they make it? I don't know. From a business perspective, I think there's plenty to choose from within the Porsche line. They don't really need a Porsche hatch.
No. Sport Turismo.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. Go get the four-door one. Next question is K Hoang says, I'm in the market for a 3.2 911. I've test driven an 86 with a 915 transmission, but there are no local G50s in my area. Is a G50 transmission worth a 10K markup, or is the 915 a deal breaker? What are your thoughts on the 915 versus the G50? Good question.
I've never heard a good thing about a 915 transmission. That's what I can tell you.
Have you ever driven one?
I haven't, though. So I can't say that it's terrible. I've just heard that it's a little tricky, not that everybody hates it.
Yeah. Now the question is, just from what you've heard, and you get an opinion on this, so let's answer the question. Do you think it's worth the 10K markup for the G50?
To be happy with my car, yes.
Yeah.
To be going, well, what if I'd gotten a G50?
Is it a deal breaker though? Like, what if you could find a car?
What's the cost of the G50s right now? Do you know? What's that? I mean,
so what essentially he's saying, he's test driven an 86. So essentially what he would have to buy, what he's looking at a 3.2. So what he's doing is he's looking at a G-body Carrera that he wants to buy with a G50.
Just like Mel's.
Yeah. No, Mel's car's a 915.
Well, I mean,
he's talking about Joe's car.
Okay,
So Joe's car's at 89. It's got a G50 in it. So he wants a G-body car. Well, not necessarily wants it, but he's looking at it. What he's essentially saying is, if I want a G-body car because he wants a 3.2, should I buy the G50 one and pay the $10,000 markup, or can I get away with having the 915?
Well, if you get the 915 and you don't like it, not saying that's everybody's opinion, over the G50, what's it going to cost you to swap it with a G50?
Yeah. They're kind of pricey. It wouldn't be worth it.
So
He would just be better off buying it from the. Yeah, he'd be better off just getting it from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anybody else will tell you. Same thing with turbos. If it's not a turbo car, you'll be better off buying a turbo.
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that. I mean, I would probably go, and not my money again, not our money.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, money no object. What are you doing?
But I mean, go in G50.
Yeah.
Just because you hear that experience from everybody that's had past experiences, if you haven't driven them back to back, then you're not going to really know until it happens. But
yeah,
you can take the consensus and say the 915 is good, has its quirks, but the G50 is going to be your better move long term.
Yeah.
What do you think? Since you've driven both, I'm sure.
Yeah, I've driven both, and I own a G50 car, so. For me, I think a 915 just has to get warmed up. It has its quirks. You get used to it. It's like anything. I've owned a lot of different cars throughout. And once you learn the quirks of the car, you're fine. I think, again, I hate to sound convoluted, but it goes back to these, and I'm not trying to discourage people from asking questions. We love the questions. I think it really depends on what you're doing with the car. I just read what his question was, and I would love to have a little bit more information. If it's just a weekend car, then the 915 is going to be fine. If you're going to maybe autocross or you're going to race it, I think, and there was tons of races won with a 915 transmission. There still are. There's tons of class, and I'm not saying it's not race capable. I'm just saying, are you race capable with a 915? Is what I'm getting at, I guess. And if you're asking me that, probably not. So the 915 is a good transmission. I've driven one. It's quirky. You got to let it warm up. What I mean is, obviously you're going to short shift it a little bit. You're not going to rev it out right away, but you shouldn't be doing that anyways. But I mean, if it's a money thing, if it really comes down to a money thing, and if $10,000 was holding me back from owning a Porsche, I would buy the 915
and just enjoy it
and get over it.
Because yet again, it's experience.
And just make sure it's a good 915 because there are great 915s. Make sure all the synchros work properly in the car. So I guess my answer is if the 10 grand's preventing you from buying the car, buy the 915. If you have the money, buy the G50. Because having my G50, I love it. It's like a rifle bolt. Like it's just, I know it's cliche sounding, but it's in, boom, 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 boom. You still got to let it warm up, but I guess there's just more confidence, I guess, in a G50 for me. But again, I guess it really depends on what you want to do. If it's holding you back from buying the car, and it depends on too, like if you're going to keep the car forever and you know it, or if it's your first Porsche and all those kind of things, like there's so many factors that go into that question of like, is this going to be your first Porsche? Is this going to be your fifth Porsche? Is this your forever car? Or is this your stepping stone? You're like, well, I just want to get an air-cooled and drive it for 4 or 5 years, not lose money, and maybe buy another air-cooled car and sell this one and get the next one. If you're on that plateau, then buy the 915, save the money, and then move on. But I mean, if this is your forever car and you really love G-body cars and you never want to buy another car and you're going to live that car to the day you die and you're going to pass it down and all those things, then maybe pay up and get the G50. That's my answer. I know it's convoluted, so I guess it really depends what category you fall into with that car. It's not horrible, but again, I guess if the 10 grand stopping you from getting into a Porsche, buy the 915. Get into a Porsche.
Either way, get the Porsche.
Yeah, don't let it deter you from getting into a Porsche.
Because you might, maybe you like the 915, and at least you'll have that experience with it to say you will or won't like the car.
Mm-hmm. And not to sound bad, it sounds like you don't know the difference. So it's almost like an ignorance is bliss kind of situation. If you buy a 915, well, you're not going to know what a G50 is like.
It's true. Just don't drive one. You'll never know.
Yeah. Or if you know somebody, and I know you said there's none around where you live at as far as a G50 transmission. Well, maybe fly somewhere and test drive one somewhere. Like try to
be less than 10 grand.
Spend a little bit of money and take a flight somewhere where there is one at a dealership and be an authentic buyer. If it's a real car that you may buy, a G50 car, like go take it for a test drive and then, and you compare it to the 915 you've driven and it may ruin you. You may be like, wow, I got to get the G50 car now. I mean, I can only tell you from somebody very close to your experience that I'm friends with in our inner circle. He wanted a G-body Carrera. And he seeked out a G50 car on purpose. He wanted a G50 car. I'm talking about Joe. Yeah. And he wouldn't settle for less. Like he wanted the G50 car. He didn't want the 915. So take that for what you will. I mean, he's not the expert on everything, but that's what he wanted.
What's Mel's experience been with his 915? Has he said anything? I mean, I really talked to him about
he jokes around about. He's like, oh, it's crappy 915. But Mel, he's just a jokester.
Yeah.
And what he's referring, our friend Mel, he drives like a grandpa anyway. So like the 915 gets it done. So maybe, and that's another thing too. Like, what's your driving style? What are you going to do with the car? Are you just is it spirited driving? You can get away with a 915 for that. And again, it goes back to feel. That, like I said, like that car's that transmission's won tons of stuff before. So it's not just that. Next question from Gabe Mendia, one of our buddies, Gabe. Plans for Lufticult. What are our plans for Lufticult trip?
To go.
Yeah.
Going to LA.
Yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there for about a week. Don't want to share all the info for right now because we got a lot of guests coming on the show.
So much planned.
And don't want to spoil anything for anyone. But let's put it this way. We're going to be guest heavy while we're out there. We're not going to obviously bombard, but I'm just telling you what's going to be coming in the next couple months with all these guest shows that we're going to have while we're out there. So we got a lot of good stuff coming. We're going to talk to a lot of people and share, they're going to share their story and a lot of stories. And it's going to be a great trip.
Yeah, we're going to take a week out there instead of just the weekend. We're really making the most out of our time. We're going to stay near the beach. Yeah. That sort of thing.
So we'll be out there for sure. So if you guys are going, say hi to us. If you don't know what Lufticult is, please go look it up. It's an air-cooled show. It's going to be at Universal Studios this year in California. I think there's still maybe general admission tickets open. I don't know.
Right now there's just the 10 a.m. general admissions when I looked last night.
It's a pretty, I guess, enthusiastic show where people really want to go to the show. You know, and obviously there's this is Loof 6, so there's been quite a few of them. So it has built a lot of momentum up to that point. And there's a lot of people going from all over the world and all over our country to it. So, and we'll also be there. So if you're there and you see the PCAR shirts, please come up to us. Please come talk to us. We like engaging with the guests. So.
Or hats. I might be wearing a hat. So
yeah. Either way. Gabe also, I don't know if this is a question or statement, puts in there is Turbo 992 GT3. I don't know what that means, but...
Is he asking if there's going to be a Turbo GT3?
Possibly. We've kind of talked about that, where we think it may just go hybrid.
Let's go hybrid.
On other episodes, and naturally aspirated with a hybrid engine, I think.
Electrified.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. Our buddy Drew from 911 Cool has an off-topic question. It says, what supplements fried chicken better, jasmine rice or mashed potatoes and gravy? Thanks for that insightful question.
I would say
we'll answer it anyways.
Yeah, I'm going to say the mashed potatoes and gravy. I'd say it
has look like a mashed potatoes and gravy.
Well, see, it's a textured difference between the fried chicken.
Yeah, I'm sure from people have seen me now. I'm going to go ahead and answer jasmine rice. That looks probably stereotyped right towards me. So
yeah,
but SR20 Fastback has piggybacked onto that question. He says, "How about waffles and chicken?"
Well, that's always the answer. I had chicken and waffles regularly.
Yeah, that's a pretty good meal as well. I enjoy that.
I would have to say the last chicken and waffles I had was they were like chicken tenders, the tenderloins versus the like the chicken breast.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I'm not a fan. I want the traditional,
like on the bone chicken.
Yeah, on the bone chicken.
Yeah, there's something about that. I think when you fry a chicken, it's I can't believe we're talking about this crap, but
something pure about the 911 chicken.
Yeah, but anyways, when the bone in, it's better. Let's just move on. We'll move away from that. And next question. They discussed where to go. Okay. Stu Sensor, our buddy from Orlando, it hosts Orlando Cars and Coffee. Great question. He says, what safaris are not cool? What's too far as safaris go? How about a Safari M6?
I think everybody's just jumping on a Safari bandwagon, and because it's different, it's something that nobody's really done, I guess, to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Except Porsche's been doing it all along with rally cars.
Yeah. I mean, and to be fair, there's other marks that were doing it too. And, back in the day, they just haven't got a lot of notoriety.
Or they're the rest of the world cars, and we don't get them here. That too.
And because there's not a lot of modern day rallies, so I guess it's kind of tough to see a modern car, I guess with rally trim.
You don't see a lot of, not that it's topic, but you don't see a lot of the Audis that rallied too much, and you would think you would see that.
Huge rally cars back in the day.
Yeah, the Group Bs.
Yeah,
the 500s. You'd think you would see more of that.
And that's where the Quattro came from.
But
so let's circle back. Yeah. Let's answer his question. Is our safaris? What safaris are not cool? Are only Porsches cool in Safari, or how about any? What safaris have you seen that are too far?
I would say anything Porsche Safari is always a level better. I think it's cool.
I like that. How about his question as far as an M6? I don't know if he's thinking about safaring in an M6. I don't know why.
He does have one, a manual, a 6-speed V10. So,
what if he safaried his car? Would you think it's cool?
I think it's okay now. I don't think it's going to get any better than safaried.
Awesome. So, this is it's a funky topic because there's a lot of people respect that are making these cars like Lee Keen, and then Akimoto's making some safaris, and there's I think was it Paleos? I think they did one. Michaelos I think did a safari, right?
Was that the blue one?
No,
that wasn't blue.
Like Michaelos livery. I don't know what it is exactly, but
Yeah,
they're all air cooled cars.
Okay.
Let's just put it that way. So they all kind of share that heart at least, and then it's just put your flavor on it after that. Whatever accessories you want to go with. What safaris are too far? I saw a 996 Safari about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe even longer than that, 5 years ago. That was out in California running around. It had like a matte green paint on it, lifted with like a light bar and all that stuff. And honestly, like I didn't like it. It looked weird. Like I don't know if it was the execution or if it was the car itself, but when I kind of peeled back the onion a little bit, I was like, well, it's a 996 and they're kind of hated, so I can't really upset at the guy for doing that. He tried to make it cool and do his own thing. So I'm just saying personal thing. I didn't really like it, but that doesn't mean it wasn't cool. Just because I didn't like it,
That's what
not
it means.
everything I like is not necessarily cool. I like a lot of stupid crap.
He's the bar.
Yeah, it's only me. I like it, it's cool. But I mean, would you Safari or M6? Honestly, I think I'm kind of open-minded. I think it could look cool. I like things that are different. I know you wouldn't, because it's a manual V10 M6, so you probably wouldn't do that to that car. But
decently low miles too.
yeah, if you were to do it, I think the badass way to do it would be you do the old school M logo like on the car, like the M1 logo.
Yep.
Like on the car where it's got the stripes on it, and do it in white, like maybe a wrap, and then you do the rally lights on the front hood, you do a proper lift and all that kind of stuff, and then you straight pipe the car, and then you do the KO2s, and maybe even take it one step further, and you'd have to cut in the car to do it, like put a huge tire like Baja style on the back, mounted on the back, and if you got the money to do it, it could be, execution's everything. You can make anything cool, like as long as you have proper execution, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. Take the time and effort to really think it out versus just slap it on.
Exactly. Potentially, yes. Expensive exercise to find out.
Exactly.
if not. Because it'd be kind of challenging to go back
you don't
to everything else after that and be like, this doesn't work, man.
The wrong move. Well, yeah, stuck.
Yeah. So, Gabrielo Coco 402 asks a question. It says, when rebuilding a 912E engine, which horsepower would you increase it to while maintaining reliability for endurance racing? It's a pretty good question.
Is this a multiple choice question, or is he just?
This is a pick your horsepower to increase to with the 912 engine to maintain the reliability for endurance racing. That's what he's asking. So he's asking for a horsepower number.
What are the horsepower numbers normally? I know I can't.
Pretty low. We're talking like 110, 115, 120-ish round.
Probably 200. I'm sure you could probably get 200, and that's a reliable number out of that motor.
Yeah, that's where I was going to land with that as well, as 200.
So lightweight too.
Yeah, and if I remember, Gabriel, I'll ask John Benton because he's the 912 guru. His car, his 912 that he bought originally, and he's obviously done a lot of work to that car and engine wise, and it's reliable. Like, it can continue to go, and he drives it all the time. That car's over 200 horsepower. I think it's like 215.
Yeah.
Out of that flat four. So that's a pretty screaming piece right there, and it gets it done. So if you're going to build it, not saying that you don't have building skills, but if I needed to pay somebody to build a 912 engine, it'd be going to John in a heartbeat.
Fact.
Yeah. And he could find a way to manipulate as much horsepower for whatever budget you have. Like, he'd work with you. So
yeah, if he's running 215 and it seems like a pretty daily thing, then maybe that's what you shoot for.
Mm-hmm.
Like we said, we don't know what that takes money wise to get there. It may not be worth it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it really just depends, So I would say, look, I agree with Aaron. If a nice round number, I would say 200 would be fine. DFW Dad asks another question. Thank you for your participation, by the way. Do you think the hate for the 996 was the fact that it was the first water cooled and now it's just remained? That's question one. It says, obviously the IMS was a huge event regarding the car, and the impact on that car is very low as far as IMS. That is correct. I think that's more of a statement, not a question. And then the next question is the 996 twin turbo not best value Porsche for the last 10 or 15 years? This is interesting. So go ahead. Question one.
I would say that, I don't know I'd say that's probably true because it's a new type of Porsche.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're talking about these electric cars that we don't want to happen, or the hybrids. Same thing. It had to be a conversation with the air to water.
Yeah.
I still think that it wasn't just the hatred because it's the new thing on the block. I think it was just design wise. It was far enough from what was considered original or what made the 911 with the single headlights that
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't appeal to the buyer, even though they sold a ton of them. They sold a ton.
They did. You're right. And then next question, 996 twin turbo, not best value for Porsche in the last 10 to 15 years.
That's absolutely the best, one of the best values as far as tune. I mean, again, it's the Metzger motor, it's twin turbo, so tunability doesn't take much to get it crazy fast.
Mm-hmm.
Take it to 2-wheel drive like Chad's, and it's crazy.
Good to go. Yeah, so I think the 996 was hated just because it was. I agree. It went water cooled, and a lot of the purists were. It's always been an air cooled car, and I would agree with Aaron. I think it's a headlight thing more than water cooled. I think it was a double whammy, so it was a lot to stomach. So I think
too much change.
Yeah, I think if and not saying like again, I'm a firm. I love the 996 GT3, and it has those headlights. So whatever, and the GT1 car has those headlights.
That's true. That's so good looking though.
The 996 guys that own those cars, the ones that are in the know, argue that the GT1 has those headlights. So the guys that have 996 use that. That's firepower if you're not already using that.
Yeah, I mean,
the GT1 car has it.
Yeah.
So, anyways, to stay on topic, I think if they would have picked one or the other, right, with Porsche, if they would have picked headlights or air cooled or water cooled, like however you want to do that combo. Instead of doing both, I think that car would have got a little less stepchild treatment, in my personal opinion. But the fact that they went a double whammy, they went water cooled and they had those funky headlights, I think that was enough excuse to give Porsche people to bitch about things. And to be fair, with the headlight situation and all that kind of stuff, I think another caveat to that to kind of like spiral down a little bit, I think they would have been okay with the headlights, in my personal opinion, if they did not share them with another car. If it was just for the 911, meaning if it wasn't on the Boxster.
Oh yeah, I can see where you feel like it's devalued.
That's a lot of their argument. Like back then, back in the 99 when that car came out, they're like, well, that car looks like the Boxster. And the Boxster is like an entry-level convertible car. That's the hairdresser car. I don't want my 911 to look like that.
And they've never done that again either.
Yeah,
I mean, even the Cayman and Boxster styles kind of they're a little different.
Well, during that time frame in 99, 2000, on one of those, that's what a lot of the guys that were older than us, we couldn't afford those cars at the time, but that was their argument. They're like, look, I'm not buying a car. It shares the same. It looks like in the front, it looks the same as that car.
It is.
Same. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So I think it's more like what Aaron was saying. It was a design thing. I think if that stuff wasn't shared, if they didn't cross-share that, and that was specifically the 911 and the Boxster looked totally different, I think, honestly, the headlights would be far less of an issue than it is right now, in my personal opinion.
And then you can look at it two ways, too. You could look at it that production-wise, they figured something out because now they share parts with these the two different cars, and so that makes production that much easier.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other way would be, well, now our other car looks like our 911, so it's going to have it's going to appear to have more sports car. Well,
I'm sure the theory from a design perspective was it's going to be less expensive for them,
and it still looks close to it.
Exactly, and I think that was the thought behind that. Because that was when the Boxster was introduced during that time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So I think their thought was like, how can we make this less costly for us as a manufacturer? And I get that. I mean, everybody has worked in some form of business in their life where people try to cut costs, and I get that. But from a design perspective, I think that's why, being in the weeds with Porsche, I think that's the main underlying reason, is because it shares that DNA with the Porsche. I mean, the Boxster, excuse me. If it didn't, I think it would be far less of a problem. I'm not saying it wouldn't at all. I'm not distinguishing it at all. I'm just saying it would be far less of a problem. I think people would give it more of a pass if it was his own thing, as opposed to being like, well, those two clowns look exactly the same, and that guy cuts dog hair for a living and drives a Boxster. And, not crapping on Boxsters. I'm not trying to feed into the stereotype. Again, we're all a love thing. I'm trying to quote guys who were living in that era of why they didn't want. I'm not saying I'm saying that. I'm saying that's what those guys were saying during that time frame of and the Boxster is a great car. Don't get me wrong, but I think we're answering the question here what DFW Dad has, and I think that's why. Along with the water cool thing, and it was just a combo deal. It just kind of the gauntlet got thrown down. It's like, God, this car's just changed so much. And and to throw another caveat in there with that car, and it was a victim of the era that in car manufacturing in general, not just
a cheap
I was
time.
I was just about to go with like plastics and all that stuff in that car.
Well, I mean, that's not that it's cheap. It's that, oh man, we can manufacture this stuff a lot easier.
Well, yeah, ABS plastic was very popular during that time frame, and it wasn't just Porsche. It was everyone who was manufacturing a car during that time frame. They're like, oh, we have this new product that we can put in cars, and we can mold stuff, and we can do it, and it's durable, and it's safer, and it doesn't weigh a lot, and this is a magical thing. It's ABS plastic. It's the best thing in the world. And I mean, people do talk about it, but that question doesn't refer to that. I would say that's another factor too.
Yeah, the interior just didn't hold up.
Yeah, that thing sucked too. The interior wasn't that great.
Which again matched with the Boxster's interior for the most part.
And then his next question, you answered it already, but is the 996 twin turbo the best value in the last 10 to 15 years? I'm going to refer back to your question earlier when you had us answer those other questions. Yep. Clearly, you want a turbo.
That seems like it. So
I'm paying attention.
Then just go that way. Right.
I feel like you have your answer. Yep. Like I think
subconsciously.
I think you're a turbo guy because you threw that in there too as far as value goes. Do I agree it's the best value? I do. As far as you say 10 or 15 years, initially maybe on the secondhand market back when it was still kind of a new car, I don't think it was the best value at that time. But where we are now, absolutely. And the tide is actually rising on that car as we speak, as we talked about earlier. So if you're really going to make a move on one, you probably ought to do it in the next 24 months, I would say. Not because it's going to be like catastrophically expensive, but if you're going to buy one anyways, buy one now instead of spending more money in 2 or 3 years from now for the same car.
Yeah.
So, Slick Top 911 asks, Mike, if you were to change your 964 paint scheme / build, what would you do? From the body paint to the roll bar you have in, brake calipers, wheels, and interior. Wow. It's a pretty loaded question.
It's a lot of paint.
Yeah, right. So I'll answer this, and then I'll let Aaron play this game if he owned my car and the way it's set up too, as far as what he would change it to.
But I think Mike's gonna say nothing.
Yeah, it's perfect. I would never change it. Honestly, like if I was gonna do a build, like an aftermarket build on the car, and I've talked, and I haven't talked on the podcast about this. A lot of people know that are close to me. Like I like a lot of different things, and I feel that you should make the car what it is, as long as you don't screw with the DNA too much, that we talked about in another episode. But paint scheme wise, I probably would go jade green for exterior.
Oh, that's a good choice.
Yeah, and then roll bar wise, into my half cage, I would probably, I've kind of played with this. I would maybe go speed yellow, or
on the jade green.
Yeah. Or I would go lava orange, I think, for inside cage. So brake calipers would go lava orange. As far as wheels, I don't know. Like I like the cups, the 3-piece cups that I have on there now, the speed lines. But if I'm switching just a switch, probably BBS. As far as which ones I would go with, that's debatable. I don't know exactly which ones I would go with, but that's what I would probably do. Some type of BBS, and I would go over what I would do with that. As far as the interior goes, I would maybe go tartan. I don't know, just to switch it up from the Hounds cool, too.
If you had the jade, and then you had some type like one of the leading stripes being the lava orange.
Yeah,
or close to it, that'd be cool.
What would you go with if you had the 964?
I don't know what I'd want to. Let's see. So I do love Guards Red. That's a thing. Actually, I'd probably go Maritime Blue or Aero Blue, one of the blues that I like. And then after the Aero Blue or Maritime.
I like Maritime, obviously. I mean, the cage is that.
So. Well, I mean, I'd probably go more. I'd go Aero Blue. I'll firm up on that. Go Aero Blue. As far as a cage, and then a contrasting color. I don't know. Maybe I would go really reverse of what you have. Maybe I
Mhm.
would do aero blue
Like
and then
guards
guards
red
red,
yeah.
and, roll bar and calipers.
Mm-hmm.
The interior wise, I'd probably just do black. I wouldn't do
Anything
maybe a
crazy.
house to insert,
Yeah.
maybe, but not really. I'd probably just do all black.
Yeah.
Probably keep it nice and simple. I don't know if I would even
You know, a lot lava orange would look good on that blue too.
Yeah.
You know.
little Florida Gator
Yeah.
in the inspiration,
Yeah.
I guess.
But yeah, I mean, I'm like, and honestly, I like Ruby Stone Red a lot, but like, I didn't say that because it's a Carrera 2, and I think and I don't, not to sound like I don't care what people think, but I just wouldn't have to want to explain the car, I guess.
It's not an RS.
Exactly.
It's not an RS.
And I would
It's
keep
not an
Carrera
RS.
2 on it, but people would be like, well, why'd you paint it RS color? And it's like, oh, I like Ruby Stone. I think it looks
Same
cool.
reason I have an LS in there. Just
Yeah,
cool.
Exactly. So I think for the sake of argument and not having to have to answer that question over and over again, I would shy away from Ruby Stone and I would go with like a jade because that car didn't really come in a jade green, and that's probably why I would do that. But again, I think it would look good with like a lava orange, so I'm still tying in RS colors, like GT3 RS came in lava orange, so that'd be kind of cool to put that on there. And I think it would contrast and I think what I'm thinking is, remember back in like biology school, had that green frog on it with those really
Yeah,
orange
exactly. Yeah,
eyes.
it's
That's kind of what I'm thinking
You
of when
can't
I
stop
see that
looking
car.
at it. I
Yeah,
know what
well,
you're
I'm
saying.
thinking about that for that car
Yeah.
with that color contrast, and I think that would be kind of cool.
rainforest tree frog.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I'd probably go with that. So hopefully that answered that question. Ren11, Sean, hey, shout out. Check him out if you haven't already. He runs a pretty cool Instagram page, all Porsche related. He goes, how did you and Aaron meet, and was it love at first sight? You smart ass.
Well, it was first time. I think it was Cars and Coffee.
Yeah. Met at Cars and Coffee, and I think Aaron was driving a E36 M3, so I didn't really talk to him at all.
Yep, didn't care about that.
No. I was like, who's this BMW guy?
Is that all he drives?
Taking a picture of my car. I don't like him.
I didn't drive.
I was like, wait a minute, why is
911.
this guy following us to breakfast?
Yeah. Get lost, bro.
Who knows this guy? Who invited this guy? No, but in all seriousness, that's kind of how we met at Cars and Coffee. It was just, and
We ran a pretty.
honestly, like Aaron and I probably
Yeah.
didn't talk for a while. Actually,
No, I was months.
yeah, like it was a while, like before we started chatting with each other. To be honest with you, because he was a friend of a friend. I didn't really even know him that well.
It was Amelia. It was that first Amelia. That's what it was.
Yeah,
That was probably the first time we hung out more than.
yeah. So yeah, that's how we kind of ended up started hanging out. And that's kind of, it's blossomed from there. And then I think I saw him driving a 997. I was like, oh, all right, he's all right. And then, to give a little bit of background and not to get too much into it, Aaron and I never really talk about this because, people in the world feel have mixed emotions about this kind of stuff, but we're both ex-military guys and we didn't serve together, we did at the same time, but we didn't know each other while we were in.
Yep.
So we did have that common bond where when we started to get to know each other a little bit better, and us both being military veterans, we were able to relate on that level, other than just a car levels. But going back to the Cars and Coffee thing, now we're doing a podcast together. We met at a Cars and Coffee. So for all the guys that you just get out there and hang out, start
Yep.
going to car stuff. Like you never know who you're going to meet. You never know what relationships you're going to end up having. We would have never predicted this a few years ago when we met each other that this was going to be here. So
Nope.
here we are. But next question, Highway Star Dorito again, 997.1 GT3 or 997 Turbo, which would be a better buy?
Again, what are you gonna do with it?
Yeah.
I mean,
So let's try to play the game where we're
Okay.
filling in the blank of, maybe we're talking dollars at this point.
okay, it's dollars, straight dollars. I know the turbos they're not exactly a deal right now. The 997 turbos. I mean, they're not like the 996s. I think they're fair. I think
They're a
they're
little
close.
cheaper.
I
They're a
think
little
they're
cheaper.
close enough to me to a GT3 where I would just go hardcore in GT3.
I agree with that. I think that they're not miles apart as far as pricing goes. I think maybe you can pick up a clean, we're not talking ultra low miles, but let's just say I think you can pick one up for 65 between, maybe I've seen some at 60, but I mean, less than that, I probably wouldn't want to touch it. It probably needs a lot of work, rebuilt turbos, whatever. but maybe from 60 to 75. And I agree with Aaron. I mean, I think it's close enough to GT3 money and 997.1. Like for me, I'd rather have the GT car than the turbo car. I mean, it's a cool car, but again, we're breaking down the dynamics. We're in the weeds. Like we would like rear wheel drive. That car's an all wheel drive car. Not that you can't make it a GT2 type setup and do the work and do all that stuff, but why not just buy the GT3, I guess?
Oh, and you'd be pretty unique right now.
Yeah.
I mean, even with a 997 GT3, it's still, you don't see too many, a ton of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Aaron and I go to a ton of stuff. And again, like and we're not hating on the cars. We love them. Obviously, we have a Porsche podcast, but like the inundation of the newer GT3 RSs and the newer GT3s. I mean, the market seems flooded with them. I mean, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know. If you ever shop any kind of cars, there's a ton of newer GT3s for sale all over the place. I mean, as far as like all the stuff we go to, we don't see a ton of 997 GT3s everywhere. And Aaron and I are at a lot of places. I mean, how many did we see at DRT? Maybe a couple?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Out of like 400 something cars?
Yeah, maybe a couple.
I saw a couple 997.12s RSs, GT3 RSs, but I didn't see like a ton of regular just GT3s there, like 997s.
Not at all.
Maybe one or two. So,
what color would you get if you chose either one of those 997s?
If you mean like an RS or
It didn't matter.
I think that I've seen one for sale, but I was not going to pay the money for it. I saw a 997.2 GT3 RS in Riviera Blue.
Yeah.
Looked awesome. But I think I don't want to pay the premium for it, but like I really like the Viper Green 997.1. I really like that. I really like the pumpkin colored one. I think those are two really loud colors. I think they're kind of cool and just like loud stuff like that. I mean, if you're going RS, I almost feel like
it's your duty to just be
you owe
loud
it.
and proud.
You owe it
it
to like the homage to go get a funky color. Like I don't care if you want to live a lifestyle of like subdued and hiding. Like
no hermit life here.
Then go buy a regular one. Don't go get an RS if you want to hide. Like get it if you get the RS. Go all in, man.
RS bright colors and just straight.
I mean, it goes back to the
exhaust.
thing. You're not gonna daily the RS anyway, so you don't have to be some people are like, oh, it's just too flashy. It's too this. It's too that. And there's something to be said about modesty. Like that's cool. But to be honestly, at the end of the day, you're gonna drive that car if you're an RS and you can afford an RS. It's a weekend car at most. You're gonna drive it to the shows at most. So, I mean, that car really isn't living that much of a life other than the track and those shows. I mean, you're not like going out to dinner in that thing. I mean,
might be.
I mean, you could be. I'm not saying you can't, but you're probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's probably where I'm at with that. Next question from Skirb asks, what is the meaning of P life? I think, like P car life or P life, if you're a Porsche nut, like what's the meaning of that? Like what's the ethos? Like we could go pretty far down the list with this, but let's dive into it a little bit. Like what does that mean? Is it everything Porsche and that's all it is? Is that all
that's
you
pretty
think?
much what I've done with it. I've pretty much gone like, well, I'm all in.
Yeah.
It's mine. I acknowledge other things and I know about it. I'm not so siloed where I don't see anything else going on in life, but yeah, I mean, I say it's a pretty cool. Well, I don't know if it's the only brand, but it's a pretty cool brand to do it with. I mean, it's got the family base, it's got the friend base, that type of thing, and heritage, and it has all the keys that you would want in a good cult.
I would agree with that. I think if you have the funds, and we clearly don't, but I mean, if it was a money no object thing, and I'm talking about cars, because we're already kind of living that life, I guess, in a sense, as much as we can. Obviously, we have a podcast. We're going to everything that we can go to get involved, and we have been doing it, prior to this anyways. But our passion is deep, and I think as time goes on, and I think once you have figured out, then you learn the history, I think it becomes infectious, right? So as Aaron indicated, it has the history, it has the lineage, but it also, if you really start to break down as far as practicality goes, like if you're the guy who can afford it, you can have, and I know it sounds stereotypical saying it, but like it just happens that I'm fitting the demographic. So I'm just pulling from the numbers. You get the wife, the Porsche Cayenne to drive, as a daily. And if you have children and, maybe you're a guy and you need to pick the kids up occasionally. So you need something more nimble. And we had a conversation about this many, many episodes ago. So maybe you need another SUV. So you get the Macan S or something like that.
Yeah.
So you can pick the kids up, but you can still have something fun and nimble. And then your third car is your 911 or your Cayman or whatever your fancy is for your car. Like, as Aaron said, like it can fit all of those things.
Yep.
Like it can do all of that stuff. So, I mean, from a P-car life, I think it's one of those things where you live it, you breathe it. For me, there's not a time in the day. It doesn't go by where I'm looking for Porsche content. If I have some downtime or I'm looking at something Porsche, or reading up on Porsche or, just thinking about it in general, I think it's just one of those things where it starts to consume you over time, to be completely honest with you.
You just get ingrained with it. And it just happens more and more as you go to these races and stuff and you see what it's about, or you visit the museums or you go to the PEC, and the more and more you learn, the more and more you're like, I'm proud to be a part of this.
Yeah.
This.
And I think the support's there too. I
Yeah.
think that's a big part of it. And like, it doesn't get talked about as often as it should. But, all of these little pocket shows that exist, as we've had an episode with Al from DRT on the show, and we talked about HSR, and, HSR isn't a Porsche event. It's a historic sports car racing event. But when you're at that event, predominantly the cars that are there are Porsche cars.
I'd say at least 50%.
Yeah. So, and then we're going to Luftgekühlt, and what I'm getting at and where I'm going with this is the support. The support network is there for, if you're a passionate person about Porsche, you can go to these events and continue to feed your passion, as opposed to, and I'm not trying to compare it to anything else, but, say like you're a guy who likes a brand that I'm not going to name or any of that stuff, but maybe you get to go to 2 or 3 major events a year and there's not a whole lot else going on other than that. And maybe there's a little bit of forum traffic that you can get on there and chat with other guys. And, you have your little hamburger meets every once in a while in your town and you hang out with, and, there's like 2 or 3 of your extra cars in your town and those guys, and that's about as far as it goes. But, the Porsche brand is strong, and I feel it's well supported too. You go to an IMSA race, and a good buddy of mine, he's a Porsche guy and used to be, he still is. He still likes BMWs. He's fortunate to have a lot of cars. And we were at the Rolex 24, and he was like, we came by the Porsche Corral and hung out a little bit, and then we hung out, and he was like, hey, did you see the, I think it was BMW, right? He's like, did you see the BMW Corral? And I was like, no. He's like, yeah, exactly. It's non-existent. He's like, I think I own more BMWs than were at that corral. That kind of made me laugh. But, he's being completely honest with you. And I'm not saying that BMW people aren't enthusiastic. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. I guess what I'm saying is, as far as an action person goes, like as far as a corral, if a corral supported, like a Porsche Corral, I've never seen a Porsche Corral not sold out.
It's packed. It is always packed.
Like people are fighting to get into a Porsche Corral.
Yep.
And
it's
I
not
think,
$20 either to get in. But
and I think the only other brand that even comes close is Corvette. Chevy.
If we
like
had
they have
to
a
look
pretty
at it,
strong. They have a pretty strong corral.
You can see that at Sebring.
Yeah. So, and that's the only other brand that even comes close as far as their support network.
Well, they have Link. They have heritage there too, and I think that's what helps.
Yeah, and plus the age grouping. I mean,
That's
all the baby
the same age.
Yeah, all the baby boomers that exist that all want a Corvette. They feel in their mind you've met the pinnacle of sports carness when you have a Corvette. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's the way they were raised, and everybody's raised wrong. It happens.
Yep, they'll get a better taste someday.
Maybe not. There's sands running out for them. It happens. But at the end of the day, I think it goes back to the Porsche support network. There's so much, and it goes deeper. You can go to the fact where look at all the liveries that Porsche has and the winning liveries, and I mean they could parade these liveries around because they've won so much, and it's there, right? Like they're the winningest brand for a reason, and I think winners attract people, and not saying that we're just fanboys because they win. We'd love them either way, but it translates down to their cars. And I think that's the huge thing is that it goes back to the old moniker, and they've played on that. Where back in the day, even like from a NASCAR era, where the cars were before it's turned into all these things that it's turned into, and it's all these standardized rules. But back in the day, it was the win on Sunday, sell on Monday type of deal, where the winning cars sold back in then. Dodge, the Superbird, the Superbirds, and they're like that. Richard Petty's driving a Superbird. I want a Superbird, or whatever it is, and I think it's one of those things where you can get pretty close as a Porsche fan if you have the funds to what Tandy and those guys are running at, the GTLM class. You can go buy an RSR car. You might not be able to drive it on the street, but if you have the funds, you can go race it. Like guys like Lee Keen, they're driving and they're racing in their own series. They're buying 911 MRs, and they're full on race cars. Like not too many brands offer that club racer type of network support where you can go do that.
Yeah, where it's straight.
I mean, you're not going to go buy a
car.
Corvette GTLM car. It's not going to happen. They don't sell it.
No,
it doesn't exist.
The closest you can probably get is something by Pratt Miller, and that's
But you're still taking it from an independent, getting it done,
it's not
right?
Yeah.
So I think that's where that's what P car life is, or P life, or your question regards. I think it just consumes you, and sometimes it can be unhealthy. I'm sure our spouses and our significant others can wonder why we're so enthralled with something so specific, and how can you guys only be this and only love that? And I think it's once you start to educate yourself, and I think you start to learn the history of things, I think it just makes you more addicted, and the disease grows stronger, right?
Yep, and that just seeps into even the spouses too. I mean, even though that Kristen's pretty Porsche heavy.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do anything BMW.
Yeah.
So
I think it's just one of those things where it just kind of consumes you, I guess, and for good reason. It's not a bad thing.
It's a hobby, and now your subculture can just be. You can do it as much as you want.
And it turns, a lot of people into, maybe weren't social before, but now you have a common bond, right?
That's true.
You can talk about your Porsche passion.
I mean, we've made so many friends this year alone,
mm-hmm.
just through the Porsche stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah, so I think that's what it is. I think it's where everything you drive, even down when you go, and this isn't the tell-all, but, if, say you go on vacation with your significant other, and you may be going on Turo to look at a Porsche SUV to rent, or a car that you can get by in Porsche instead of having a regular car. I think when you're at that level, I think that's when you're living that life. When you don't have your rental car, you don't want to drive anything other than a Porsche. You're just like, I don't want anything else in my life, So I think that's what it is. Our buddy Dr. Kyle Stanley asks the questions. I'd love to hear common problems with certain years of 911s. For example, on 964, the lights always break. I think he's talking about rear lights. They always get cracked and faded. Or on a G-body car, where to watch out for rust. Kind of like a buyer's guide. So this can get kind of lengthy if we start going through every model. But let's just kind of chit chat over things, just first things that pop up, go for it. What do you think of, like, and you don't even have to think air cooled. I mean, you can hit the low hanging fruit, like, IMS stuff or whatever you want to do. Like, start thinking about things that to stay away from if you're a buyer for certain cars.
Well, I mean, obviously that's the easiest thing would be 996 all the way to 997 to 08 IMS
mm-hmm.
bearing.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely, I'm to the point where I'm kind of not. I'm just gonna keep rolling the dice.
Yeah,
it's such a low percentage when you keep looking at it. It's just form guys.
Yeah,
talking about it.
Yeah, the boogeyman, right?
Yep.
So,
I don't know what else. I mean, other things to look for is just like we talked about with Wes before in other episodes. It's just suspension stuff, bushings, other stuff. Like really drive it and feel it out and see if it feels.
mm-hmm.
I mean, you may not be able to feel it out, but at least getting that PPI where you can really look at that stuff and know that that's going to be a wear item. Make sure they're not too terrible.
Yeah.
And what you're getting into.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, a PPI is huge. If you're not going to do a PPI, I think there's some common stuff you kind of mentioned already. I mean, like, that's frivolous stuff, like 964 lights. More importantly, I think people want to shy away, at least from 964s are their early ones.
Mm-hmm.
The intakes are metal, and as opposed to like where they switched over like halfway through the run to like a plastic style. where there's not that much, there's no issues with that. Seals on that car, 964s are known to leak a little bit. So if there's excessive leaking, I'd be wary of that. And all Porsches have this problem, by the windshield and the passenger side left corner area. The seal starts to fail and then water starts to collect, and then you can get some rust bubbling there in that area. And sometimes it's painted over and you can see it start to come through. I would say, more importantly, with almost any Porsche, in my personal opinion, is get as much data where the car lived at, I think, is a big one. Especially on an early car. If you get an early car, a lot of those chassis weren't galvanized. Like I'm talking like pre-74 cars.
Okay.
So that could be a definite rust problem.
No matter how well they take care of it, even if it gets put away for the winter season.
Exactly. Condensation. I mean, it's not a galvanized chassis, so I mean, it is what it is. So unless the thing lived in a really arid climate and you're looking at an early car, just like anything, it wasn't the sign of the times. Like the car just didn't have the kind of coating and protection on it. So, and again, it goes back to one of these places where, let's be realistic, depending on what type of car you're looking at maybe 30, 40 years of problems, depending on where it lived. And let's be honest on how many owners that own that car. We go back to what we talked about before. You're buying the seller, not really, and not just that seller, like all the sellers that own that car. So if you're looking at an early car, man, that could be a lot of people, or it could be not that many people. And that's why there's a price premium on certain cars. They're like, well, this is a 1-owner car or a 3-owner car, and we know all the history, and the car's never been in the snow, and it's never been in like this. And, there's a very, as we all know now, there was a time period where 911s in general were very cheap, and probably owned by a lot of people that probably shouldn't have been buying 911s and didn't properly maintain the car. And maybe it was their only car. So guess what? When it snowed in Chicago or it snowed in Michigan,
guess what it went through?
They drove that damn car to work.
Not as far.
And they probably didn't rinse the damn thing off because it only cost them $10,000 to buy it when they bought it back in mid 90s, and they bought an early 80 car or 70s car, and nobody wanted the thing. And they thought it'd be cool to have a 911. So there's a lot of things to look for on a lot of cars. So, I mean, I hate to give a convoluted answer, but it goes back to it depends. But places to start are easy. Where's the car been living at? What type of documentation exists for the car? All of these things that you don't need a PPI for. You can kind of read between the lines.
Carfax, if you can, if that
if you have a period of time where maybe there's a lot of documentation, say in an early car, and then it goes dormant for years, and then there's documentation again. Well, the guy probably had the gap there. He was probably a scumbag owner. Didn't care. Whatever. It wasn't important to him. He was probably the guy, when he got the book from the guy's like, why are you keeping track of this kind of crap?
Why would you write this down?
He's like, why are you?
I'd never write this down.
Yeah. Why are you keeping oil tabs on the car when you get your oil changed? Who gives a damn? And like, take it for what it is, and then look at maybe where the service picks back up and what was done to the car at that point. It's like, okay, maybe all those things got addressed, even though there was a scumbag owner in there. And you also think that, not everybody keeps good records, and it's just a tough game, as far as that goes. It's scary because we're talking about a lot of dollars, especially nowadays. You don't want to go in there and buy a basket case and end up dropping another 20 or 30,000. But, if you listen to the episode that we had with Drew when we were down in Miami, and this goes true for every brand, right? It goes back to the fact that you may end up paying for a car and end up having to do a lot more money on it that you didn't expect anyways, right?
Normally, if you think you're getting a deal on it, it's just a deal at that moment. It's not, and it's going to cost you later on.
Exactly. Like he talked about, a different car, like having an NSX and then having had motor work done. Man, I owned my 964 for a year, and I had to get a top end rebuild on the car, and had a clean bill of health when I picked the car up. And then, as a burnt valve, it needs to get done. I mean,
and see, the PPI can only do so much.
Exactly. Like it's not the save all, right? It's just trying to mitigate your
initial feelings.
Exactly. It's trying to mitigate you for not buying a total wreck. So I think if you go in with an open mind, understanding that these things are machines and maybe not maintained at the level you would have maintained the car at some part of its life. I mean, it's almost you're buying a used sports car at the end of the day that probably got abused at some point in its life. And
Because it's a sports car and you want to do those things.
exactly. So, huge challenges on that end. Good luck with your find, Doc. I know you'll find something cool. And he was the one reposted his video about his son where he knows all the type of 911s, but what did he say? He doesn't know his like ABCs or something He's like, he doesn't know his ABCs, but he knows all of these 911s.
And he did.
Which is awesome. But thanks for the question, Doc. And we want to thank everybody out there who did take the time to put their questions in. Again, like we love doing this stuff. We love your engagement. We love answering your questions, even if they're ridiculous. I'm not encouraging you to continue to ask ridiculous questions, but if they're mild and PG, we'll answer them. But let's keep it car-centric if we can, and we'll try to knock that out for you guys. And like I said, we'll try to do one of these episodes. Like I said, I don't want to put a time frame on it. It's just based off of how long maybe we've gone without doing one of these. But we'll try to do one of these every once in a while because I think it's healthy to answer those questions, because a lot of people maybe not have that outlet and not have a buddy they can ask. And we want to be that, that family member where, we're all close enough where you can shoot us a thing on Instagram and ask us a question, because, there are, we're talking real dollars. If you really are a buyer and you're interested in hunting for a car, and you want to make sure you buy the right car and then for the right price, right?
Yep. That's always yep.
So, we appreciate your time. We didn't take a break. We just wanted to run through and just knock it all out. Thanks for your time. I think we're out of here.
Yep. See you guys.
See ya.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of PCAR Talk. Connect with us on Instagram at PCAR Talk or online at PCARTalk.com.